The soft glow of the afternoon sun filtered gently through the tall trees lined up neatly in the campus backyard. The place was quiet, with only the rustle of leaves stirred by the breeze and the occasional chirping of birds. A peaceful place, almost perfect for a confession that had been kept in the heart for far too long. Jungkook stood right in front of Yin, his eyes locked onto hers with a serious yet tender gaze. His fingers fidgeted slightly in his pocket, simply to distract himself from the nervousness he couldn't hide. "Yin," he called softly. Yin gave a small nod, her heart pounding as she looked back at Jungkook. Somehow, ever since he asked to talk to her alone after class, she had a feeling something was going to happen. Jungkook took a deep breath. "I know this might feel sudden, but I can't keep this to myself anymore." Yin held her breath. "I've liked you since our first year," Jungkook continued, his voice steady despite the clear nerves in his eyes. "At first, I was just amazed. You're smart, always talked about by the professors. But the more I saw you, at the library, in the hallways, even just sitting quietly while sketching, I realized my feelings were more than admiration." He paused for a moment, his gaze full of hope. "I know we're in different classes, and maybe I never really had a reason to talk to you. But every time you smiled when I greeted you, it made my day. And today, I just want to be honest. I like you, Yin. I've liked you for a long time, and I want to know, do you feel the same?" Yin was silent for a moment, her eyes glassy with emotion. She hadn't expected Jungkook, the one she had often stolen glances at, the one who greeted her casually, to now be confessing feelings that she herself had also been carrying. She couldn't hold back the smile that crept onto her face. "Jungkook," she whispered, her voice slightly trembling, "I like you too." Jungkook's eyes widened, clearly surprised by the quick and genuine reply. "I've liked you since our first year too," Yin added. "Every time you said hi to me, I'd smile all day. I thought it was just a casual hello, and I thought my feelings were one-sided, but it turns out..." She couldn't finish, her voice was choked with emotion. She lowered her gaze, shy over how exposed her feelings now were. But Jungkook took a step closer, just one step, but enough to make both their hearts race wildly. "Thank you for being honest, Yin, and thank you for accepting my feelings." They smiled at each other warmly. No longer just two popular, intelligent students known by name among professors. Now they were two hearts finally meeting on the same path. For a moment, there was a sweet silence between them. Yin continued gazing at Jungkook's face, still trying to believe this moment was real. Jungkook gave a small smile and rubbed the back of his neck. "You hungry?" Yin blinked, then let out a soft laugh. "A little." "Let's go to the cafeteria together," Jungkook said casually, though his eyes still held depth. "I haven't eaten yet, and honestly, right now, I really want to sit next to my girlfriend while eating." His words made Yin's face flush. She nodded slowly with a smile, and without another word, Jungkook gently took her hand in his. That grip, firm and warm. On their way to the cafeteria, they stayed just like that, walking side by side, hand in hand. Some students who passed glanced their way, some even whispered quietly, but they didn't care. It felt like the world had shrunk down to just the two of them. Upon arriving at the cafeteria, Jungkook immediately pulled out a chair and chose to sit next to Yin, not across from her. He wanted to be close. He wanted it to feel real. "I'll sit here," Jungkook said softly, then gave a small smile. "It's easier to keep holding your hand," he whispered, making Yin giggle shyly. They ordered their meals and chatted lightly while waiting. Yin felt comfortable. There were a few awkward moments, but mostly filled with smiles and quiet laughter. Everything felt like the perfect beginning, but the mood shifted when two familiar figures approached their table. Jungkook. That voice, it was Bambam. Jungkook turned and smiled. "Oh, you guys are here too?" Hana only gave Yin a brief glance before refocusing on Jungkook. Bambam nodded shortly and took the empty seat across from them, and Hana sat beside him without saying much. Yin immediately recognized them, Bambam and Hana, names that weren't unfamiliar. She had often seen them with Jungkook, sometimes joking around in the hallways or sitting together in the campus garden. They were known to be very close. "Oh right," Jungkook said, turning to Yin. "This is Bambam and Hana. We've been neighbors and friends since elementary school." Yin smiled politely and nodded, trying to remain warm, even as she sensed a chilly aura slowly creeping in. Hana responded curtly, while Bambam gave a silent nod. For a moment, the air grew tense. "This is Yin," Jungkook continued. "She's my girlfriend." The words were clear. Yin caught the subtle shift in both Hana and Bambam's expressions, the way their faces stiffened. Silence followed, only a few seconds, but enough to make the air feel heavier. Girlfriend? Hana finally spoke, her voice flat. Jungkook nodded casually, showing no sign of hesitation. Yeah, we just made it official today. Bambam nodded again, his expression just as cold as Hana's. Oh. Yin kept her smile, even though she could clearly sense the change in atmosphere. Neither of them showed much interest or warmth toward her. They started talking, but it was mostly just Jungkook and his two friends. Hana brought up their project presentation, Bambam complained about a strict professor who made their assignment difficult, and Yin simply listened. She tried to laugh along with their jokes, but neither Hana nor Bambam made an effort to include her in the conversation. Slowly, Yin felt a knot forming in her chest. Do they not like me? She wondered. Do they not approve of me being close to Jungkook? Still, despite the tension, Yin chose to remain calm. She didn't want to make it an issue. For her, what mattered most was Jungkook's behavior, and ever since they arrived, he hadn't let go of her hand once. Under the table, Jungkook's hand still held hers warmly, as if silently comforting her amidst the awkwardness. Even as Jungkook laughed at something Bambam said, his thumb gently caressed the back of her hand. Sometimes he played with her fingers gently, sending a silent signal. I'm here, don't worry. And that was enough for Yin. She didn't need everyone's approval. Not today, not now. Because for her, that simple hand-holding was more than enough to assure her that she wasn't alone. 1 week later, Yin's apartment was livelier than usual, not because of guests, but because of her own restless energy as she paced in front of her wardrobe. Today would be her first date with Jungkook outside of campus. Over the past week, they had grown closer. They often had lunch together at the cafeteria, and even though they weren't in the same class, Jungkook would come pick her up. He had also started walking her home more frequently. But even though they had grown close, today still felt nerve-wracking because it was officially their first real date. They had planned to go out to the cinema to see a movie together. It sounded simple, yet Yin couldn't hide her excitement. She had just finished showering and was in her casual clothes, hair still slightly damp, when the doorbell rang. Her eyes flicked to the clock on the wall, still an hour before our agreed time. Without needing to guess, Yin already knew who was standing behind the door. She quickly grabbed a small towel to wipe the remaining water from her neck, then opened the door. And just as she expected, there was Jungkook. His face looked fresh, hair neatly styled, and the scent of his cologne immediately filled the air, teasing Yin's senses. She stood frozen for a moment, somewhere between admiration and panic. Jungkook, she exclaimed in surprise. We agreed to meet at 2. It's only 1. Jungkook simply smiled widely. I know, I came early on purpose, so I could see you sooner. Yin's face turned red instantly. I'm not ready yet. I haven't even done my makeup. But you opened the door anyway, so I guess you don't mind me coming early, he said casually as he stepped inside without hesitation. May I come in? He sat on the couch and looked around. Your apartment feels cozy. This was his first time inside. Previously, he had only dropped Yin off and never even gotten out of the car. Yin let out a nervous giggle as she closed the door. I haven't had time to get ready. I just got out of the shower. Then she sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Good, Jungkook suddenly said. I'm glad you opened the door now. Yin frowned slightly and turned to him, confused. Why? Jungkook tilted his head and looked at her meaningfully. His gaze was deep and soft yet intense, like he was memorizing every detail of her face. Because now I get to see you just as you are, no makeup. And turns out, he paused for a breath, absolutely beautiful. Yin's cheeks turned even redder. She lowered her head shyly, brushing a finger through her still damp hair. Don't say that. Everyone looks prettier with makeup on. But I like you like this, Jungkook said gently, his eyes never leaving her face, as if afraid to miss a single second of this moment. His words felt sincere, so sincere that Yin could feel it deep in her chest. She bit her lip, trying to look at Jungkook, but couldn't hold his gaze for long. Too nervous, her eyes dropped again. We still have an hour, right? Jungkook said softly. This time, Yin managed to meet his gaze. There was something different in his voice, still gentle, but carrying more weight, more meaning than just the words themselves. Jungkook leaned slightly closer. Their faces were now just inches apart, just one small movement away from closing the distance completely. Yin, he whispered, his voice deeper now. I'm really happy we're together. Yin nodded gently. Me too. Their eyes locked, neither looking away. The silence wasn't awkward. It was intense, exciting. Since we started dating, I haven't kissed you yet, Jungkook confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. Yin's heart began pounding wildly. I don't want to force anything, he added quickly, but I do want to. Yin's breath hitched. She looked into his eyes, then at his slightly parted lips, and back to his eyes, and in that moment, she knew she wanted it too. Jungkook gently cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing just under her eye, touching her as if she were the softest thing he'd ever held. "May I?" he whispered again, his gaze clouded with emotion. Yin gave a tiny nod, almost imperceptible, but Jungkook saw it. His breath trembled slightly, not out of hesitation, but from how fast his heart was racing. Slowly, he leaned in, closing the gap. Their lips met in a soft, delicate kiss, light but meaningful. And when Yin didn't pull away, Jungkook deepened it. His hand moved to the back of her neck, drawing her closer. Yin instinctively gripped his arm, as if steadying herself amidst the whirlwind of emotion, pulling her in deeper. The kiss shifted, from cautious to intense. Jungkook tilted his head, kissing her more deeply. Yin's hands rose, resting on his chest, feeling his racing heartbeat. He was nervous too. He was lost in it too, and that made her smile against his lips. He eventually pulled back, just enough to breathe, his nose still touching hers. "I really, really love you," he whispered hoarsely. "So much." Yin's face was flushed. She hadn't even replied yet when Jungkook leaned in again, kissing her harder this time, bolder, more confident. Their breaths grew shallow, uneven. The world melted away. In that moment, it was just them. And when the kiss finally broke, not because they wanted to, but because they needed air, Yin rested her head against Jungkook's chest. Warm, safe, comfortable. Jungkook wrapped his arms around her, one hand gently stroking her back. They didn't speak for a while. They didn't need to. Everything had already been said in the way they kissed, the way they held each other, as if refusing to let the world steal that moment from them. "If this is what happens every time I come early," Jungkook murmured softly, "I'm definitely going to keep coming early." Yin chuckled, hiding her face deeper against his chest. Then she asked, "Do you want something to drink? I'll make it." "Anything's fine." Yin straightened up, her face still glowing, then stood and walked toward the kitchen. Not long after, she returned with a cold glass of watermelon juice for her boyfriend. "I'm gonna go get ready now, so we can leave after this," she said. Jungkook nodded and took a sip of the juice she made. Without realizing it, their relationship had already reached the 1-month mark. Even though they weren't in the same class, Yin and Jungkook always made time to see each other. Every day, during breaks between lectures or after classes ended, Jungkook would appear in front of Yin's classroom with his warm smile. Sometimes it was just to bring her a cold drink, other times to walk with her to the cafeteria. On weekends, they often spent time alone together, taking turns visiting each other's apartments, sometimes at Yin's place, other times at Jungkook's, or just going on short strolls around the city. So far, there hadn't been any significant problems. Yin felt their relationship was simple yet fulfilling. Jungkook always treated her with genuine care. He knew how to make her feel special without needing to say much. His gaze, his touch, the way he held her hand while walking, all of it made Yin feel safe and loved. However, there was one thing Yin gradually began to notice. Hana and Bambam, Jungkook's childhood friends, were becoming increasingly cold toward her. Still, Yin chose not to dwell on it too much. For her, she was dating Jungkook, not his friends. As long as Jungkook remained warm, attentive, and continued to show that he was serious about their relationship, Yin didn't feel there was anything to worry about. She didn't see the need to find fault in Hana or Bambam, nor did she feel the need to try and win their approval. "I don't need them to like me," Yin mumbled to herself one day while alone in her room. "As long as Jungkook doesn't change, I don't care." And truly, Jungkook never changed. That's why, even though she was aware of Hana and Bambam's disapproval, Yin chose to stay silent. Because during the past month, there hadn't been a single reason to doubt Jungkook's heart. Until one day. That morning, the sun was already high by the time Yin finally opened her eyes. It was a lazy Sunday, and she had purposely not set an alarm. She and Jungkook had plans to have lunch together today, just the two of them, like they always did on weekends lately. She stretched slowly in bed, then reached for her phone lying on the bedside table. A few notifications were still unread, but the one that caught her attention was a message from Jungkook, sent just a few minutes ago. "Jungkook, baby, can I call you for a bit?" A few moments later, her phone started ringing. Yin answered right away. "Hello?" Her voice was still hoarse from just waking up. "Hey, you just woke up?" Jungkook's voice sounded soft but warm. "Sorry to bother you. I just wanted to tell you something about our plan today." Yin sat up, leaning against the headboard. "What's wrong?" Jungkook took a brief breath before explaining. Turns out Hana's been in the hospital for the past 3 days. She didn't tell anyone. Yesterday she was absent from class, said she was sick, but no one knew she was actually hospitalized. I'm planning to visit her this afternoon with Bambam. Do you want to come along? Yin paused for a moment. It's okay. You go ahead. I don't need to come. Besides, I've got a lot of assignments I haven't finished yet, so it's better if I work on those now. Jungkook fell silent for a moment. He knew that Yin wasn't close to Hana or Bambam, so he didn't want to push her. I'm sorry, baby. How about we meet at 4 instead? After I leave the hospital, I'll go straight to your apartment. If I visit the hospital later in the afternoon, the visiting hours will be really short because it'll be late. What he said made sense. Yin knew very well that Hana was Jungkook's childhood friend. They were practically like family. Besides, Jungkook wouldn't be alone. Bambam would be with him too. Alright, it's okay, Yin finally replied. Let's have dinner together, yeah? Of course, thanks for understanding, Jungkook said, sounding relieved. I won't be there long. The rest of the evening will be all yours. They talked for a bit more before Jungkook said, okay, I'm gonna get ready now. I'll text you later when I'm on my way to your apartment. Alright, Yin replied with a small smile. Be careful, okay? After the call ended, Yin stayed still for a while. She knew that what she had just decided was mature and reasonable. She trusted Jungkook, and there was nothing wrong with a friend visiting someone who was sick. But even though her head understood, her heart refused to fully relax. She didn't know why, but a strange feeling slowly began to grow inside her chest. Not jealousy, maybe just an uneasy feeling she couldn't quite explain. Still, Yin chose not to overthink it. She got out of bed and began getting ready, deciding to bury herself in assignments so that time would pass more quickly. Before she knew it, afternoon had arrived. The sunlight had begun to soften, slipping gently through the cracks in the curtains of Yin's living room. She sat comfortably on the sofa, dressed in cozy but cute home clothes. An open book rested in her hands, but her eyes were no longer focused on reading. Every now and then, she glanced up at the wall clock. Her phone, lying on the small table beside the sofa, suddenly buzzed. Jungkook, I'm on my way now, baby. A small smile formed on Yin's lips. She continued pretending to read her book. It didn't take long before the sound of the doorbell echoed, clear but not startling. With a heart that fluttered slightly, Yin walked to the door. And there he was, Jungkook, standing calmly with a warm smile that instantly made her chest feel lighter. Hi, Yin greeted, smiling widely. Hi, Jungkook replied, his eyes immediately softening at the sight of her face. As soon as the door closed behind him, they wrapped their arms around each other. Without needing words, Jungkook pulled Yin into his embrace. Then, their lips met in a warm and gentle kiss. The kiss wasn't rushed. Their lips met slowly, melting together in the quiet intimacy of the afternoon. Yin's arms looped around Jungkook's neck, pulling him closer. Their breaths mingled, calm and warm. After a few long moments, their kiss broke, and they finally sat down together on the sofa. Jungkook reached out and gently took Yin's hand in his. I'm sorry, today's been kind of messy, he said quietly, looking into her eyes. It's okay, Yin replied with a small smile. I understand. How's Hana doing? Jungkook let out a soft breath. Still weak, but she's getting better. They said she might be discharged later this evening. Yin nodded slowly and leaned her head on Jungkook's shoulder. Hope she gets well soon. They continued chatting, light conversations about school assignments, movies they wanted to watch, and little things that made them laugh. The atmosphere grew light, comfortable, and full of that peaceful kind of happiness only two people in love could share. But soon, Yin's laughter suddenly faded. Something began to stir in her chest. She leaned back slightly, her eyes landing on Jungkook's face, but her gaze halted. Her smile slowly disappeared. Her eyes were locked on a faint reddish mark beneath Jungkook's jaw, partially hidden by the collar of his shirt. Yin's breath hitched, a kiss mark. Her heart pounded in her chest, but not from happiness. She tried to remain calm, her fists slowly tightening on her lap. Jungkook, she said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. What's that on your neck? Jungkook furrowed his brows in confusion. What do you mean? That, she said, pointing subtly. On your neck. Jungkook touched the spot she was referring to, still clueless. Where? With trembling fingers, Yin stood up and went to her room to get a small mirror. She handed it to Jungkook and pointed directly at the mark. As soon as Jungkook saw it in the mirror, his eyes widened. What the hell? He muttered in shock. I didn't even know this was here. Yin's eyes began to sting, glossed with tears. She turned away, trying to hide her expression. Don't lie to me, Jungkook. I know what that mark means. Someone kissed you. There's no way that appeared on its own. No, baby, please, listen to me, Jungkook said quickly, reaching for her hand. I'm not lying. I seriously don't know where this came from. Yin's voice began to shake as she pulled her hand away. Then tell me, has Hana been cold to me all this time because she likes you? Jungkook looked stunned. What? No, Yin. No, Hana and I are just friends. That's all we've ever been. Then why is she never warm to me, even after she found out we were dating? I don't know, but she has a boyfriend, Yin. His name is Yugyeom. He goes to a different university. He was even at the hospital today. We were all sitting together in Hana's room. Yin frowned. She has a boyfriend? Yes, they've been together for a while now. Hana really loves Yugyeom. I'm sure of it. Yin fell silent. All this time, she thought Hana disliked her because she liked Jungkook. But if Hana really has a boyfriend, then everything suddenly felt wrong, off. Then who left that mark? She stared deeply at Jungkook. Are you sure about everything you're saying? Or could it be that Hana actually has feelings for you, even if she's with someone else? Jungkook quickly shook his head. That's impossible. I know Hana. She would never do that. She loves Yugyeom. She really does. But this time, Yin's emotions started to rise. Her voice sharpened. Then who left that mark on your neck, Jungkook? Jungkook tried to calm her down, his voice still gentle. I don't know, baby. I really don't know how it got there. I didn't do anything. So where did you go today? Yin asked, her eyes still glossy with tears. Just the hospital, Jungkook answered patiently. And what did you do there? I just sat in Hana's room. We talked, waited with her. Bambam and Yugyeom were there too, that's all. Silence filled the room. They looked at each other, both confused. So what really happened? Yin wanted to believe him, but this time, it was hard. That kiss mark was real, clear, on his skin. But who put it there? And why did Jungkook look just as confused? Jungkook slumped down, burying his face in his hands. What is actually going on? Yin sat quietly beside him, hugging her arms around herself, trying to contain the storm inside. The question still had no answer. But deep in her heart, she knew something wasn't right. The next day on campus, Yin deliberately isolated herself on a bench in the back garden. She had no intention of going to the cafeteria with her friends, and for some reason, she didn't want to see Jungkook that day either. Her heart still felt heavy after what had happened yesterday. She knew something was bothering her, and the only way to clear her mind was to be alone. At first, the garden area was quite empty. Only a few students were sitting far apart, but as time passed, the place began to fill up. Yin was about to leave when her eyes caught two familiar figures, Hana and Bambam. Immediately, her chest heated with emotion. She stood up, ready to walk away, but Hana's voice stopped her. Why aren't you with Jungkook? He's been looking for you, said Hana, her tone seemingly casual. Yin turned sharply, her emotions flaring. Why do you care? Don't pretend to be nice. Don't pretend to care about us. Hana looked surprised by her outburst. Yin, what's wrong? Before Yin could respond, Bambam cut in. Just leave her. Why should you care about her? She's just a nuisance, he said to Hana. Hearing that made Yin boil over. What's actually your problem, huh? From the start, you two are the ones who've been causing problems for me. Bambam quickly stepped toward Yin, but Hana hurriedly grabbed his arm. You're a nuisance in our lives, you hear me? Shouted Bambam, his eyes blazing with anger. Bambam, stop, Bam. That's enough. Hana tried to hold him back, but Bambam brushed off her hand and grabbed Yin, pulling her toward the back of the campus building, where it was quiet. Seeing that, Hana's body trembled. She immediately grabbed her phone and tapped the one name she knew could stop everything, Jungkook. Come to the back of the building, quick. Bambam is starting to act crazy, Hana said anxiously over the phone. Meanwhile, behind the building, Yin struggled to free her hand from Bambam's grip. What do you mean by dragging me here? She asked angrily, her voice trembling. Bambam stared at her intensely. Listen carefully. You'd better stay away from Jungkook. Yin frowned. What? Why should I? Because Jungkook should be mine. Bambam cut her off, raising his voice. Yin froze. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. What do you mean? She whispered. Bambam looked at her without hesitation. I love Jungkook. He shouldn't have a girlfriend. He should be with me. Yin took a step back, shocked. You love Jungkook? Yes, Bambam said softly but firmly. And he just needs time to realize his feelings for me. So you'd better not get in the way. Yin's knees felt weak. She was scared, shaken, and too shocked. Never in her wildest imagination did she expect that her rival wasn't a girl, but a guy. Moments later, fast footsteps echoed through the hallway. Jungkook appeared with Hana. The moment he saw Yin, Jungkook rushed over and wrapped her in his arms. She still looked visibly shaken. Yin, are you okay? He asked, holding her tightly. Then, Jungkook turned to Bambam with a sharp glare. Don't ever bother Yin again, Bam. I've told you, I can't return your feelings. Bambam was silent, his expression shattered. His eyes turned red, and with a heavy breath, he turned around and walked away. Hana followed him without saying a word. Now, only Yin and Jungkook remained. Yin still stood frozen in Jungkook's arms, her eyes blank and confused. It's okay, baby, I'm here, Jungkook whispered gently, stroking her back. You're safe. I won't let anyone hurt you again. Seeing that Yin still looked shaken, Jungkook gently held her hand and softly said, let's go to the cafeteria. You haven't eaten, right? I was looking for you there earlier, but didn't find you. Yin weakly shook her head. I don't want to be around people. I'm not ready to see anyone. Jungkook understood. He nodded gently. Okay, then let's go to the back garden, yeah? They walked slowly to the back garden, which had returned to being quiet. Only a soft breeze and a few falling dry leaves filled the air. They sat on a bench, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Jungkook broke the silence. I know you're shocked, but I can't just stay quiet and let you overthink everything alone. He took a deep breath before continuing. Bam. He really does love me. He confessed back in high school. Yin slowly turned to look at Jungkook's face, her eyes still dazed with confusion. I turned him down back then, but because we've been childhood friends, I didn't have the heart to distance myself, so I kept our relationship as just friends. I thought he'd moved on, Jungkook said quietly. Yin didn't respond. She was too stunned, but clearly heard every word Jungkook said. She tried to process it, but her heart was still torn between disbelief and confusion. Seeing Yin unresponsive, Jungkook stood up. Wait here, okay? I'll go to the cafeteria and get us some food. You need to eat, baby. Yin simply nodded softly. She stayed seated in place as Jungkook walked away. Several minutes passed. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps could be heard coming from the garden path. Yin turned her head, and her eyes slowly widened as she saw Hana emerging from behind the trees. Without asking for permission, Hana sat down on the bench across from her. With hesitation, Hana finally asked, Yin, are you okay? Yin remained silent, but after a few seconds, she finally looked deep into Hana's eyes. Hana, Yin said softly, yesterday, did Bambam kiss Jungkook? Hana froze, her body stiffening. Why are you asking that? Without any small talk, Yin began explaining. Yesterday, after coming back from the hospital, Jungkook came straight to me, and I saw a kiss mark on his neck. I asked him about it, but he was confused. He said he didn't know how it got there. Hana's face instantly changed. Her eyes showed a trace of worry, but eventually, she exhaled and started explaining everything. At the hospital, it was just me, Jungkook, Bambam, and my boyfriend, Yugyeom. We were chatting like usual, keeping me company. But Yugyeom went out for a while to buy drinks and snacks for us, so it was just the three of us left. Hana looked down for a moment, then continued. Not long after that, Bambam went into the bathroom. Since Jungkook didn't have anyone to talk to, he eventually fell asleep. I knew he was asleep, and I let him be. I was still feeling weak at the time too, so I closed my eyes as well. Hana's voice began to tighten. Then, I heard the bathroom door open. I assumed Bambam was coming out, but the room was weirdly quiet. When I opened my eyes, I saw Bambam kissing Jungkook's neck. Yin's face went pale instantly. I immediately confronted him. I said, Bambam, what are you doing? He was shocked to see that I was already awake. But Jungkook didn't wake up at all. He was sleeping like a corpse, completely unaware. I was in shock too, Yin. I knew Bambam liked Jungkook, but I didn't expect him to go that far. Yin couldn't say a word. Her eyes widened, her mouth slightly parted, but no sound came out. Her mind went blank. The fact that the kiss mark wasn't just a suspicion, but real, and worse, done while Jungkook was unconscious, and by a guy. Yin didn't know whether to feel relieved or more horrified. Several moments passed in silence. Only the wind and Yin's erratic heartbeat filled the space. Then, in a soft voice, Yin finally asked the question that had been weighing on her heart from the start. Hana, Yin whispered, staring at the girl in front of her. Have you been cold to me all this time because you were taking Bambam's side? Hana looked surprised, but she didn't try to defend herself. Slowly, she nodded. Yes, at first, I did. Hana admitted honestly. I can't lie anymore. Bambam has been my best friend for a long time. And soon, he's going to be part of my family. Yin frowned. Family? Hana nodded again. I started dating Yugyeom because I asked Bambam for help to get close to him. And Yugyeom is Bambam's cousin. So, ever since I got together with Yugyeom, Bambam and I became even closer. We'd often hang out, even outside of campus. Yin fell silent, trying to process how everything was connected. When Bambam told me he liked Jungkook, he asked me to support him. At first, I thought, well, he's my best friend. I should help him. And besides, he's known Jungkook way longer. So when Jungkook started getting close to you, I felt uncomfortable too. I felt pity for Bambam. Bambam and I both thought you were just some outsider who suddenly came and disrupted what they had. Yeah, back then, I sided with Bambam because I could be with Yugyeom thanks to his help. Hana looked down. But now I realize, that was selfish. She looked directly at Yin. Jungkook has the right to his own life. He has the right to choose who he loves. And if he chooses you, that's his choice. It's not my business. And it's not Bambam's either. He also has the right to reject Bambam's feelings. Yin remained quiet, but her eyes locked with Hana's deeply. Even before you two got together, Jungkook used to talk about you to us. Even before you knew he liked you, he kept mentioning you. He always said you were unique, different, and intriguing. That's when Bambam started getting anxious. He was afraid of losing Jungkook, so when he found out you two were dating, Bambam couldn't accept it. Hana let out a long breath. But I don't want to take sides anymore. Because I've seen it myself. You didn't do anything wrong, Yin. And Jungkook, he really loves you. I can see that clearly. Hana's words struck Yin straight in the heart. A mix of relief, disappointment, and exhaustion swirled in her chest. She had never imagined that all along, someone had silently stood on the opposite side and was now finally confessing everything. However, Yin simply lowered her head and gave a small nod. She didn't know what to say. All she knew was that her heart felt too full today. Too many truths she had to swallow in such a short amount of time. And Yin couldn't force Hana to take her side because she knew Hana and Bambam clearly had a closer, stronger bond. Moments later, the sound of familiar footsteps approached. Jungkook arrived, carrying 2 plastic bags filled with food and drinks. His face showed a brief flash of surprise upon seeing Hana sitting in front of Yin, but his expression softened right away when he sensed there was no tension in the air. Sorry, it took a while. The cafeteria was pretty crowded, Jungkook said as he sat beside Yin, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. He glanced at Hana and asked softly, "How's Bambam?" Hana took a short breath before answering, "He's gone home. I didn't stop him. He needs time to be alone." Jungkook gave a small nod. He didn't say anything more. He understood completely. Not long after, Hana stood up from her seat. "I'll get going now. I'm sure you both have a lot to talk about," she said gently, giving a small smile before leaving the two of them under the shade of the now quiet and peaceful back garden trees. Jungkook opened the plastic bag and began taking out food containers and 2 cold drink bottles. "Let's eat," he said as he handed some food to Yin. But she remained silent. Her gaze was distant, still not fully recovered from all the truths she had just heard today. With patience, Jungkook leaned in a bit closer and looked at her pale face. "You haven't eaten all day, right? Come on. Just eat a little. It'll help calm your heart too," he coaxed softly. Still, Yin didn't react. Eventually, he picked up a small piece of bread and held it to Yin's mouth. "If you don't want to be hand-fed," he said, smiling teasingly, "does that mean you'd prefer I feed you with my mouth instead?" Yin's once empty eyes now glared sharply at him. Slowly, a faint smile appeared on her lips, and without much thought, she pinched his thigh. "Oh my god, you," Yin muttered softly, but her eyes were now gleaming again, more alive than they had been minutes ago. Seeing that, Jungkook chuckled, happy to see her smile return. "There we go. Now open up, or I really will feed you with my mouth." With slightly flushed cheeks and a smile on her face, Yin finally opened her mouth, letting Jungkook gently feed her. They started eating together, sitting side by side in comfortable silence. Jungkook occasionally fed her, then fed himself. No words were exchanged, but warmth and sincerity were clear in every gesture he made. Their next class was about to begin. After finishing their meal and tossing the empty containers in the nearby trash bin, Jungkook glanced at the watch on his wrist. He then turned to Yin, who was still sitting on the bench with a blank stare. "Come on, let's go to class," he said gently. But Yin shook her head. "I don't want to go to class, Jungkook. I just want to go home. My head feels heavy. I need rest." Jungkook paused for a moment. He looked at her intently, full of understanding. As worried as he was, he could tell how overwhelmed she felt. Today had been too much for her. Finally, with a quiet sigh, he nodded. "Alright, I'll take you home." But Yin shook her head again. "No. You should still go to class. I can go home by myself. I'll take a taxi." "I can't let you go home like this, baby," Jungkook replied, his tone firm but still gentle. "Especially not when you're like this, alone, and clearly not okay." Without waiting for further approval, he reached out and gently held her hand. Then, he led her with him, walking toward the parking lot. Upon arriving at the parking lot, Jungkook opened the car door for Yin and made sure she was seated comfortably. He then got into the driver's side and started the engine. During the entire ride, Yin remained silent, staring out the window, her eyes lost in thought. Jungkook glanced at her a few times, trying to read her emotions through her expression. Without saying much, he reached over and gently held Yin's hand with one of his, while the other stayed on the steering wheel. "What did Hana say earlier?" he asked softly, his voice almost a whisper, not wanting to make her feel pressured. Yin glanced at him briefly, then looked straight ahead again. "Later, I'll tell you at the apartment, okay?" Jungkook gave a small nod. "Alright, no problem. Just rest for now if you need to." They fell silent again, but it wasn't a cold silence. His continued grip on her hand throughout the ride served as a silent comfort to her. Once they reached the apartment, Yin took off her shoes and slowly walked into the living room. Jungkook followed behind her and sat down on the couch, watching as Yin stood with her back to him, as if gathering the courage to speak. A few seconds later, Yin finally sat beside him. There was a moment of silence. Then, in a soft voice, she began to speak. "Hana told me everything," she said, "including about when you fell asleep at the hospital." Jungkook frowned. "What do you mean?" Bam. Yin took a deep breath. "He's the one who kissed you. He's the one who made that mark on your neck while you were asleep." Jungkook's eyes widened. His body instantly tensed. "What?" Yin gave a small nod. "You didn't notice, right? You were asleep, and Hana saw everything. She even scolded Bambam, but you didn't wake up. You were sleeping like a corpse," Yin said irritably. The room fell into silence. Only the ticking of the wall clock could be faintly heard. Jungkook was still quiet, clearly shocked, but eventually, he let out a long breath and looked at her. "Do you feel better now?" he asked gently, his gaze full of concern as he studied her face. Yin turned to him. She looked deep into his eyes before suddenly wrapping her arms around him tightly, resting her head on his broad chest. "Don't ever leave me, Jungkook. Don't ever choose Bambam over me," she whispered, her voice fragile. Jungkook let out a soft chuckle and hugged her back. "Of course I choose you, silly." But Yin wasn't done. She pulled back slightly and glared at him. "You better not let me find out one day that you're secretly cheating on me with Bambam." Jungkook laughed and pinched her cheek playfully. "Don't say nonsense. That's never going to happen." Yin still pouted but didn't respond. Suddenly, she stood up and without warning, sat on Jungkook's lap facing him. Jungkook's laughter died down. He stared at her silently, a small smile forming on his lips. They were now very close, intimately close, but he didn't pull away. In fact, he stayed still, curious to see what she would do. Yin's hand moved, gently touching his chest, then slid up to his neck, caressing his jawline. His heart pounded. His gaze shifted, tension flickered in his eyes, yet he remained silent, simply watching her. Her hand paused at his neck, right where the faint kiss mark still lingered. Yin leaned in, gently kissed his lips, then whispered in his ear, "I want to erase the mark Bambam left, right now." Without waiting for a response, she began kissing his neck softly but deliberately, sucking gently to leave a mark of her own. Her emotions were a storm, anger, jealousy, and longing all colliding into one. Jungkook bit his lip, trying to control his body's reaction. "Yin," he murmured softly. But Yin didn't stop. She kept going, leaving little traces as a way of claiming what was hers. She wanted Jungkook to know, this man wasn't anyone else's. He was hers, and she wouldn't give him up to anyone. Eventually, she stopped and looked into his eyes. He was still silent, his breath unsteady. His gaze had changed, darker, but warm. Something had been awakened inside him. He smirked. "You know," he said in a low, husky voice, "you just woke the sleeping monster, baby." Yin's eyes widened. Yes, she could feel it too. She tried to get off his lap, but this time, Jungkook's hands firmly held her waist. "Shh, where do you think you're going?" he whispered with a smirk. "Now you have to take responsibility." And with that, he kissed her deeply. This time, It felt different. Yin knew she had truly awakened the sleeping monster.